Hello, today's Wednesday, April the 1st, and I'd like to begin by giving a few announcements. The first one is this. I've spoken to almost everyone in the church, and no one in the church or none of their immediate family has been affected by the coronavirus. We're so thankful for that. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of you who have continued to support the church financially through either mailing of your check or through online giving. And third, I'd like to acknowledge all the great work so many people are doing with the videos for the adult ministry, for the teens, and for the children. Thank you so much that we're able to do this and keep in touch with everybody. So let me ask you a question. How are you doing with the social isolation? How are you doing with being alone? I have a concern, and my concern is this. Temptation never takes a vacation. Sin is always crouching at your door, looking to pounce upon you. Now, I think in this time right now of isolation, when we don't gather together around the Word, when we don't gather together in fellowship face to face, it's easy to isolate yourself and go off into places that maybe you normally would not go. A few things in particular that I think are evident. The first one is this overindulgence of alcohol. I think another problem, pornography. But moving down the list, but still problems, maybe some of you are in a Netflix-induced coma right now. Or maybe you have blurry eyes and carpal tunnel from playing too many video games. But I want to talk about another temptation that some of you might be battling with. This is far more subtle, but I believe it's real. And that is this, an oversaturation with current events. Now, let me be very clear right here. I'm not talking about information, I'm talking about saturation. We don't want to put our heads in the sand and not know what's going on. I believe we need to be current. We need to know what the latest health advisories are, what we can do, what we shouldn't do. But what I mean by an oversaturation, I'll give you an example. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is race to the TV to see what the latest news is. And there you sit, hour after hour watching this. If someone called you up, you could immediately tell them how many new cases have been detected since the last hour. Then you go to bed at night, and that's the last thing you're thinking of. See, why I think this is subtle, because it leads to such pessimism. It leads to such dark thinking. It leads to thinking the worst. It leads to a place that you forget who God is and that He is still on the throne. So the things that you're doing now, are they moving your heart closer to the Lord or further away? Proverbs 4:23 says, "Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life." Watch over your heart. Guard your heart. Protect your heart. And the heart is the idea of your inner being, your real self, what you think, what you feel, what you choose. Proverbs says, watch over that with all diligence. Diligence, it has the idea that it's going to take work, that it's not easy to do. The easy thing to do is just to float down the tide and not watch over your heart at all. Then the Proverbs goes on to say, you need to do it, for from it flows the springs of life. Out of your heart comes either good things or bad things. The springs of life. It could be pleasant, it could be life-giving water, or it could be polluted, foul puddles. What you put into your heart, what you put into your life, eventually comes out of your heart, comes out of your life. Even Jesus tells us that in the Gospels. It's from within inside what comes out of a man that defiles him, not just the food that he puts within his mouth. So it's important what you watch, what you put in your mind. When I preached my sermon last week, I talked about two different minds, a Mustang mind and a warhorse mind. A Mustang mind is wild, it's unfettered. That's our natural state. But a warhorse mind is a horse that's used to having a rider on it, directing it which way to go. As followers of Jesus Christ now, we're called to have our Mustang mind transformed to a warhorse mind, with Jesus being the officer that guides our lives. Now, how do you watch over your heart? I'm going to read to you Philippians 4:8, and this is from the Amplified Bible. It says this: Finally, believers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable and worthy of respect, whatever is right and confirmed by God's word, whatever is pure and wholesome, whatever is lovely and brings peace, whatever is admirable and of good repute, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think continually on these things. Center your mind on them and implant them in your heart. Now again, I'm not talking about us putting our heads in the sand, living in a fantasy world that we play like nothing bad's going on, but I am talking about thinking the best, not just the worst, thinking the beautiful, not just the ugliest, thinking the things of praise, not just the bad things, thinking positive, God-honoring thoughts, not just negative, pessimistic, fearful thoughts. Now, just as we don't purposely put bad things in our body, we don't want to put bad thoughts in our head. Imagine if I told you right now, well, you know, since the social isolation has begun, I've changed my diet. I'm now on an arsenic diet. Every day I put a little more arsenic in my food, and hopefully we'll see how that works out. You'd say I'm crazy. But some of us, by putting bad thoughts in our minds day after day, that's exactly what we're doing. We're poisoning ourselves. Your eyes, your minds, your imagination, your thoughts are all those things that you can control. You control them by watching over your heart, guarding your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of your life. Stay safe, stay in contact with each other, and stay close to Jesus.